Introduction. Throughout history, some of the most influential breakthroughs didn't come from careful planning, but from accidents, mistakes, and unexpected discoveries. In this episode, we continue our journey into the surprising world of inventions born from chance, creations that quietly reshaped science, medicine, and everyday life. What began as coincidence became innovation. And today, we uncover 15 new stories that prove sometimes the greatest ideas appear when no one is looking. Let's begin. The Implantable Defibrillator. The development of the Implantable Defibrillator began with a series of observations that arose not from a search for a revolutionary medical device, but from a deeper attempt to understand the precise electrical behaviors of the human heart. During the mid-20th century, cardiology was rapidly evolving, yet sudden cardiac arrest remained one of the most elusive and devastating events in medicine. External defibrillators existed, and their ability to restore rhythm through brief electrical pulses was already proven, but their size and complexity limited their use to hospitals. The concept that such a life-saving intervention could occur inside the body without external equipment seemed improbable. Nonetheless, a series of experiments and accidental insights gradually opened a path toward a device that would permanently alter the treatment of lethal arrhythmias. Early investigations into cardiac electrophysiology focused on how electrical impulses propagated through heart tissue. Researchers used animals as models to study the threshold at which controlled shocks could reorganize chaotic electrical patterns. During these experiments, a surprising discovery emerged. Small, carefully timed discharges delivered directly to cardiac muscle were often more effective than previously assumed, even when applied through primitive or improvised instruments. This observation contradicted the belief that only large, external shocks could stabilize life-threatening conditions. It demonstrated that the heart was more responsive to well-placed internal stimulation than the medical community had realized. Over time, these findings encouraged a small group of physicians and engineers to consider whether such stimulation might one day occur without external machinery. The challenge was enormous. A device intended to deliver a corrective shock from within the body would require precise detection of arrhythmias, a reliable energy source, and a durable structure capable of enduring constant physiological stress. During the earliest stages, the idea existed mostly as a speculative thought, lacking both technological support and widespread acceptance. Many experts doubted that an internal defibrillator could function safely or consistently, given the complexity of cardiac rhythms and the risks associated with implanted electrical components. The turning point arrived when researchers conducted experiments that inadvertently demonstrated the feasibility of generating effective internal shocks using compact electronic circuits. A prototype, originally designed for studying muscle response, produced an unexpectedly strong corrective effect when applied to cardiac fibrillation in test subjects. The mechanism was far from refined, but the outcome revealed that the concept was not merely theoretical. This accident showed that a small-scale system could interrupt fibrillation if energy delivery was carefully controlled. Once this principle was demonstrated, the project transitioned from speculation to targeted development. Engineering teams began focusing on how to translate the experimental results into a reliable, long-term medical device. They explored energy storage materials, sensing electrodes, and protective casings capable of withstanding corrosive bodily fluids. The initial designs were large, heavy, and unsuitable for implantation, yet each iteration reduced size and improved precision. One of the greatest challenges involved distinguishing between normal variations in heart rhythm and truly dangerous arrhythmias. The device needed to remain passive until an event required intervention, then act instantly with calibrated force. This demand for accuracy pushed advances in microcircuitry and signal interpretation, leading to sensing systems capable of reading cardiac activity in real time. When the first fully implantable prototype was tested, it marked a significant milestone. Though bulky and limited by modern standards, it demonstrated the fundamental principle that a device inside the chest could detect ventricular fibrillation and deliver an immediate corrective shock. The test showed that survival without external defibrillation was possible. Over the following years, refinements in battery technology, biocompatible materials, and circuit design gradually shaped the device into a more practical form. Each improvement increased reliability and longevity, bringing the concept closer to widespread use. As the implantable defibrillator reached clinical environments, its impact became increasingly apparent. Patients who had survived previous cardiac arrests or who faced high risk of fatal arrhythmias gained access to a tool that watched over them continuously. Instead of relying on the presence of trained personnel or external equipment, individuals could carry a silent system designed to intervene in moments when seconds determined survival. The psychological weight of constant vulnerability was eased by a technology that offered immediate response, without requiring conscious action from the patient. Beyond personal outcomes, the device transformed the broader landscape of cardiology. Its introduction shifted medical understanding of how to manage chronic arrhythmic conditions, influencing treatment strategies, emergency protocols, and long-term care planning. It demonstrated the power of integrating engineering with physiology, showing how targeted electrical therapy could prevent sudden cardiac death on a scale previously impossible. Over time, the implantable defibrillator evolved into a cornerstone of modern cardiac intervention, supported by decades of iterative refinement. The origins of the implantable defibrillator illustrate how scientific progress often grows from moments that appear incidental at first. What began as a simple observation during basic research eventually developed into a life-saving technology. The accidental discovery that internal shocks could be controlled with small electronic systems shifted the direction of an entire medical field. Through meticulous study, engineering ingenuity, and persistent refinement, the device transformed from a theoretical curiosity into one of the most significant achievements in cardiac care. Pyrex Glass. Pyrex Glass originated from a period when rapid technological development encouraged experimentation with new materials capable of withstanding extreme conditions. In the early 20th century, industries such as transportation and manufacturing demanded products that could tolerate sudden temperature changes without fracturing. Railroads, in particular, relied on lanterns that were exposed to harsh weather, fluctuating heat, and constant mechanical stress. Traditional glass was prone to cracking when heated or cooled abruptly, creating a persistent safety concern. To address this issue, laboratories began developing specialized glass formulas that could resist thermal shock and maintain structural integrity under unpredictable conditions. Among these efforts was the creation of borosilicate glass, a material that would later become the foundation for Pyrex. Borosilicate glass featured a unique molecular structure that incorporated boron into the silica framework, producing a substance with exceptional stability. Its resistance to expansion under heat made it ideal for environments where temperature shifts were unavoidable. Initially, the material served strictly industrial purposes, such as components for railroad lanterns, scientific instruments, and laboratory equipment. Its durability, clarity, and ability to maintain shape under intense heat placed it in a class distinct from conventional glass. Technicians who worked with it recognized its advantages, yet its use remained confined to professional and industrial settings, far from the domestic environments where it would later gain widespread recognition. The accidental path that led from railroad lanterns to kitchenware began when a laboratory worker experimented with repurposing a piece of borosilicate glass intended for industrial lighting. The individual noticed that the material possessed not only technical resilience but also a smooth, refined appearance that could transition beyond mechanical settings. During informal testing, the glass was placed in an oven to evaluate its reaction to direct and prolonged heat. Instead of cracking or clouding, it maintained its clarity and structure perfectly. This simple experiment revealed that borosilicate glass had characteristics well suited for culinary applications, particularly for baking and cooking tasks that involved repeated exposure to high temperatures. Observing how the material behaved under these conditions inspired the idea that such glass could be used for cookware. Traditional metal and ceramic vessels had limitations. Metals could react with food, and ceramics often failed under sudden temperature changes. Borosilicate glass, however, remained stable even when transitioning from cold surfaces to hot ovens. This combination of durability and neutrality opened the possibility of a new category of kitchenware that provided both performance and visual transparency. The ability to observe food as it cooked introduced an entirely new experience, blending scientific material properties with everyday domestic needs. The development of Pyrex as a consumer product involved refining the glass to ensure consistent quality and safety for household use. Manufacturers tested various shapes, thicknesses, and designs to determine which formats would maximize structural stability while remaining practical for cooking tasks. Baking dishes, measuring cups, and storage containers were among the earliest products. Their introduction represented a significant innovation in the emerging era of modern home appliance design. The transparency of Pyrex allowed users to monitor heating, mixing, and rising processes with unprecedented clarity, merging functionality with a new aesthetic sensibility that reflected the growing interest in scientific efficiency within the home. As Pyrex gained popularity, it began to influence how people approached food preparation. The glass resisted staining and retained neither odors nor flavors, offering a level of cleanliness and longevity that surpassed many traditional materials. Its compatibility with ovens and later with microwaves positioned it as a versatile tool in evolving kitchens. The durability of the material also meant that Pyrex items remained in use for many years, often becoming household staples passed across generations. Throughout this period, the core composition of borosilicate glass remained central to its identity, a reminder of its industrial origins. Beyond domestic use, Pyrex continued to serve scientific and engineering applications, reinforcing the material's dual significance. Laboratories valued borosilicate glass for its reliability in controlled experiments, its resistance to chemical reactions, and its ability to withstand repetitive heating cycles. This connection between scientific rigor and everyday utility contributed to the material's distinctive status. While the name Pyrex became widely associated with home kitchens, its foundational properties were rooted in precise and demanding industrial requirements. The transformation of borosilicate glass into Pyrex demonstrates how accidental observations can redirect the trajectory of a material. What began as a solution to a technical problem in railroad lighting evolved into one of the most recognizable and enduring forms of cookware. The transition was enabled by the discovery that a material designed for mechanical resilience could offer practical benefits far beyond its original purpose. Through a combination of experimentation, adaptability, and reinterpretation, borosilicate glass became an integral part of both scientific practice and everyday living, illustrating how innovation often emerges from noticing the unexpected potential in established materials. Silly Putty. Silly Putty emerged from an era defined by experimentation, urgency, and rapid scientific improvisation. During the early 1940s, as global conflict intensified, natural rubber became a critically scarce resource. Nations depended on rubber for tires, military equipment, communication cables, and thousands of everyday components that could not be easily replaced. Laboratories across the United States were assigned a clear but technically demanding mission: identify or create an alternative material capable of replicating the essential properties of rubber. This effort drew chemists, material scientists, and industrial researchers into an enormous wave of trials, failed mixtures, and unexpected discoveries. It was in this environment that Silly Putty found its accidental beginnings. The pivotal moment occurred when a researcher mixed boric acid with silicone oil, a combination that had not yet been thoroughly explored. The mixture produced a substance with a soft, flexible consistency that did not match the expected behavior of rubber. Instead, it bounced when pressed into a ball, stretched slowly when pulled, snapped apart cleanly when tugged quickly, and lifted ink from printed surfaces. This unusual set of properties puzzled the research team because the material did not conform to any established classification. It was not strong enough for industrial machinery, not sufficiently elastic for vehicle parts, and not stable enough for heavy-duty applications. At the same time, its unusual responsiveness captivated those who handled it. Although it did not serve the intended purpose, it demonstrated an intriguing complexity that set it apart from other synthetic compounds created during the war. As laboratory documentation accumulated, the substance remained a scientific curiosity rather than a functional innovation. It passed between researchers, each attempting to identify a meaningful industrial use. Despite its intriguing mechanical behavior, no practical application emerged. Technical reports of the period noted its resilience, malleability, and unusual interactions with pressure and force, yet each report concluded that the compound lacked commercial value beyond being an interesting anomaly. For a time, it seemed destined to remain an obscure byproduct of wartime experimentation. The transition from failed industrial experiment to cultural icon occurred not through scientific breakthroughs but through entrepreneurial insight. After the war, samples of the material circulated among professionals, and its novelty consistently produced the same reaction: amusement. People kneaded it absent-mindedly during conversations, rolled it into shapes, or tested its bouncing abilities. Its value resided not in utility but in its sensory qualities. Recognizing this, a marketer working in the gift and toy industry saw the potential for a product that required no explanation other than its own tactile appeal. The material was packaged in small, clear containers and presented as an item that invited simple interaction rather than technical understanding. Once introduced to the public, the material quickly captured attention. Its unique consistency distinguished it from traditional toys, which typically followed predictable mechanical or visual patterns. Silly Putty's combination of firmness and softness, along with its ability to deform gradually under pressure, provided a sensory experience unlike anything on the market. It became a popular object for casual play, a desk toy for adults, and a source of fascination for children who discovered that it could replicate comic strip images by pressing it against printed pages. Its success grew steadily, establishing the substance as both a novelty product and an unexpected cultural presence. Behind its playful reputation, Silly Putty also attracted scientific interest. Researchers noted its unusual classification as a viscoelastic non-Newtonian material, exhibiting characteristics of both solids and liquids depending on the type of force applied. It flowed slowly under its own weight yet fractured sharply when struck. This duality made it a convenient example in demonstrations related to polymer chemistry and material behavior. Over time, the compound's structure and molecular interactions became a subject of technical study, illustrating how long-chain polymers respond to stress and temperature. Although originally dismissed as impractical, it later contributed valuable insights into the broader understanding of synthetic materials. The path from accidental laboratory mixture to commercial success underscores how scientific progress occasionally emerges from moments of unintended discovery. Silly Putty was not the result of a targeted innovation program or a deliberate technological design. Instead, it was a material without a defined purpose, shaped by its environment and by the people who encountered it. Its existence highlights the unpredictable nature of invention, where failure in one context can become opportunity in another. Through a chain of events driven by curiosity, experimentation, and reinterpretation, the substance transformed from an overlooked compound into a widely recognized product with a lasting presence. The Slinky Spring Toy. The Slinky Spring Toy traces its origins to a moment of unintended discovery within the environment of naval engineering during the 1940s. At the time, shipboard equipment required components capable of stabilizing sensitive instruments exposed to constant vibration and unpredictable motion. Engineers worked on developing systems that could absorb shocks and maintain balance in conditions where precision was essential. Among the various experimental designs being explored were specialized tension springs meant to support delicate mechanisms. Their purpose was strictly practical, with no consideration of recreation or leisure. It was within these conditions that the chain of events leading to the Slinky began, centered around an engineer whose task involved refining materials for maritime stability. During one particular test, a metal spring designed for vibration control fell from a shelf. Instead of dropping directly to the floor, the spring extended, compressed, and descended in a series of controlled movements, appearing almost as if it were walking. The motion was smooth, rhythmic, and unlike the typical collapse expected from a loose coil. This behavior caught the attention of those present because it suggested that, under specific conditions, the spring possessed a natural ability to transfer momentum through its coils. The event was not part of any planned experiment, but it illustrated an unusual mechanical property that had previously gone unnoticed. The observation that a simple object could move in such a distinctive pattern hinted at a potential use far removed from engineering. The engineer responsible for the equipment took interest in the spring's unexpected behavior and began experimenting with its movement. By adjusting the length, coil spacing, and tension, he found that certain configurations enhanced the ability of the spring to step in a continuous motion. This tuning process had nothing to do with industrial requirements. It was driven purely by curiosity. The mechanical principles behind the motion were straightforward. The spring transferred stored energy from coil to coil in response to gravity and tension. Yet the resulting effect was visually striking. The movement carried a flowing quality that appeared deliberate despite being governed solely by physics. As experimentation continued, the concept began to shift from that of an engineering component to a potential entertainment object. The spring's ability to move down stairs or traverse inclined surfaces created a form of kinetic play that required no external mechanism. Its design allowed for self-propelled motion governed entirely by balance, momentum, and timing. This simplicity made it unique among toys of the era, which often relied on gears, wind-up systems, or manual manipulation. The idea that a toy could function entirely through the inherent properties of metal coils introduced a new category of motion-based entertainment. Developing the spring into a consumer product required attention to material consistency, coil geometry, and safe handling. Industrial steel was selected for its resilience and ability to maintain shape after repeated compression. Manufacturers began producing multiple prototypes to determine the ideal combination of flexibility and stability. The spring needed enough tension to retain its structural form yet sufficient looseness to enable the cascading motion. After extensive refinement, a final design emerged that balanced these factors and produced reliable behavior across a variety of surfaces. Once the product reached the public, it quickly captivated attention due to its distinctive appearance and movement. The Slinky offered a form of interaction that was calming, rhythmic, and engaging. Its motion provided a visual demonstration of momentum transfer and energy distribution, even if users did not consciously interpret it in scientific terms. The toy became associated with simple mechanical wonder, reflecting an era in which small, accessible objects could become sources of widespread fascination. Its ability to move fluidly down staircases became an iconic feature, often demonstrated in stores, classrooms, and homes. Beyond entertainment, the Slinky found occasional use in educational settings. Its behavior offered a clear, tangible example of wave propagation and kinetic energy. Teachers used it to demonstrate principles of motion, oscillation, and physical dynamics in a way that was both intuitive and memorable. Although these applications were not part of its intended purpose, they illustrated the versatility of the object and the broader relevance of its mechanical properties. The toy's structure also inspired variations, including plastic versions, giant coils, and models adapted for demonstrations in physics laboratories. Despite its simplicity, the Slinky maintained a steady presence over decades, becoming a recognizable element of popular culture. Its longevity stemmed from the fact that its appeal did not depend on trends or technology. The experience of watching the spring move was timeless, offering a form of sensory engagement that remained unchanged across generations. It served as a reminder that the fascination of motion could originate from the most ordinary objects, provided their properties aligned in just the right way. The history of the Slinky illustrates how innovation can arise from incidental moments that reveal unexpected potential in familiar materials. What began as a utilitarian component intended for naval equipment became a playful object that resonated with millions of people. Its creation was shaped not by deliberate design for entertainment but by the recognition of a unique behavior emerging from a simple accident. Through observation, refinement, and imagination, a mechanical spring transformed into a lasting cultural artifact characterized by its graceful and continuous motion. Quinidine, heart medication. Quinidine emerged from a long tradition of studying natural compounds whose properties were not initially understood in the context of modern medicine. Its origins are closely tied to the exploration of cinchona bark, a material that had been used for centuries for its effects on fevers. Early reports described how extracts from the bark reduced symptoms associated with various illnesses, particularly those involving recurrent chills. These observations took place long before the mechanisms of disease were known, and practitioners relied on empirical results rather than scientific explanation. As medical science advanced, researchers began isolating the individual components of cinchona, seeking to understand which elements produced its characteristic effects. Among the active compounds extracted from the bark were alkaloids with distinct chemical structures and physiological properties. One of these was quinine, widely recognized for its role in managing malaria. Alongside it, however, was a related compound, quinidine, whose effects differed in significant but initially subtle ways. In early chemical analyses, quinidine was catalogued as a secondary alkaloid of limited interest, primarily because its clinical value was not yet apparent. It did not display the same level of antimalarial potency as quinine, and so it was considered less useful in treating the most pressing medical challenge associated with cinchona at that time. The reconsideration of quinidine began when physicians observed unexpected changes in the heartbeat of certain patients who had received cinchona extracts. Some individuals showed improved rhythm stability, prompting curiosity about which substance within the mixture had produced this effect. Researchers began isolating each alkaloid and studying its impact on cardiac tissue. Through these controlled examinations, it became evident that quinidine possessed a distinct influence on the electrical activity of the heart. It interfered with the transmission of impulses in a way that could suppress irregularities. These findings suggested that quinidine acted on the underlying rhythm itself rather than simply affecting symptoms, marking it as a compound with significant therapeutic potential. This shift in understanding occurred gradually. At first, the cardiac effects were considered side observations, noteworthy but not fully explored. Over time, however, consistent evidence accumulated showing that quinidine could stabilize arrhythmias under controlled conditions. Researchers tested its effects on isolated muscle fibers as well as whole cardiac tissue preparations, confirming that the compound slowed conduction and lengthened the refractory period. These changes allowed the heart to reset its electrical pattern, reducing the likelihood of chaotic impulses. The implications were substantial, as irregular heartbeats represented a growing concern within clinical practice. The development of quinidine as a dedicated medication required refining the extraction process to produce consistent dosing. Pharmacologists identified the optimal purity levels and studied how the compound behaved once absorbed by the body. They mapped its distribution, its metabolism, and the concentration ranges at which it exerted its stabilizing effects most reliably. As knowledge increased, quinidine evolved from a lesser-known component of a natural mixture into a precisely formulated medication. Its dosage forms were standardized, allowing physicians to prescribe it with greater confidence and predictability. Once it entered clinical use, quinidine became one of the earliest medications capable of restoring and maintaining normal heart rhythm. It offered a non-surgical approach to managing conditions that previously had few effective treatments. Physicians could intervene in persistent arrhythmias, reducing symptoms and improving long-term outcomes. This development marked a major advancement in cardiology, demonstrating how chemical compounds derived from natural sources could influence complex physiological systems in targeted ways. As its use expanded, quinidine became a foundational therapy for certain rhythm disorders, shaping medical practice for decades. Beyond its immediate clinical role, quinidine contributed to the broader scientific understanding of how electrical impulses govern cardiac function. Its effects provided researchers with a tool for studying conduction pathways and the mechanisms underlying arrhythmias. By observing how the compound altered specific electrical properties of the heart, scientists gained insights that supported the development of later antiarrhythmic medications. In this sense, quinidine not only served as a treatment but also helped establish the conceptual framework for future therapies. The path that led quinidine from neglected alkaloid to essential medication reflects the nature of discovery during an era when chemistry and medicine were rapidly intersecting. A compound initially overlooked for its lack of antimalarial power ultimately revealed a different and highly valuable property. This transformation was made possible by careful observation and the willingness to reconsider assumptions about known substances. Through the gradual accumulation of evidence, quinidine became recognized as a key agent in the management of cardiac rhythm disorders. Its history illustrates how understanding evolves when the unexpected effects of a familiar material are examined with persistence and curiosity. Laminated windshields. The story of laminated windshields begins not in an automobile workshop, but in a quiet French laboratory in 1903. At that time, cars were still a new and sometimes unpredictable invention. Their front windows were made of plain glass, which posed a serious hazard. Even a minor collision could cause the glass to break into sharp shards. These fragments could injure drivers and passengers, and the danger of such accidents grew as vehicles became faster and more common. Yet the solution to this widespread problem emerged entirely by accident, sparked by an unrelated experiment carried out by a French chemist named Edouard Benedictus. Benedictus was working one afternoon in his lab when he accidentally dropped a glass flask. Expecting it to shatter across the floor, he was surprised to see it crack but hold its shape. This unexpected result caught his attention. When he examined the flask more closely, he realized that a film of dried cellulose nitrate had coated the inside. The residue came from an earlier experiment, one he had not bothered to clean out. The thin layer acted like an invisible shell, keeping the broken pieces together and preventing them from scattering. What might have been dismissed as a lucky accident instead inspired a new line of thought. Benedictus began considering how this effect could be applied to other objects that were prone to dangerous breakage. The idea of strengthening glass with a protective layer was not entirely new, but previous attempts had not produced a practical or widely usable method. Benedictus approached the problem with a chemist's perspective, focusing on materials that could bond to glass without making it cloudy or brittle. He experimented with several coatings before devising a model where two panes of glass were fused with a clear, flexible sheet between them. The result was a composite structure that retained transparency while significantly reducing the risk of sharp fragmentation. Although the earliest versions used cellulose nitrate, later iterations shifted to cellulose acetate, which was less flammable and more stable. In 1909, Benedictus patented his layered glass, calling it triplex. At first, he envisioned it for use in goggles, skylights, and industrial equipment. Automobiles were not his immediate target, but as car accidents increased, the relevance of his invention became clearer. The automotive industry gradually took interest when the dangers posed by ordinary glass windshields became more widely recognized. In many accidents, occupants were injured not by the impact itself but by the scattering shards of glass that followed. Laminated glass offered a way to reduce these injuries by holding the broken pieces together, maintaining a barrier even after cracking. By the 1920s and 1930s, car manufacturers began incorporating laminated windshields into their designs. The adoption was not immediate or universal. Some companies hesitated due to the added cost or concerns about durability. Yet as testing improved and materials advanced, the benefits became undeniable. Laminated glass not only reduced injuries but also improved visibility after minor impacts, giving drivers a better chance to maintain control. Additionally, it provided better protection from flying debris, a common hazard on early roads that were often unpaved. Over time, scientists and engineers refined the inner layer of laminated windshields. Cellulose acetate was replaced with polyvinyl butyryl, known as PVB, a material that bonded well with glass and offered excellent clarity and flexibility. This transition enhanced the performance of laminated windshields in all conditions, from intense heat to extreme cold. As vehicles became faster and road networks expanded, the safety advantages of laminated glass became even more significant. It transformed from an optional feature into a standard requirement. By the mid-20th century, regulations in many countries began mandating laminated windshields because they had proven so effective in reducing injuries. They also offered additional benefits such as sound insulation and improved structural integrity. The inner layer absorbed energy during impact, which helped keep occupants safer while preventing complete glass failure. These qualities made laminated windshields not only a protective component but also a stabilizing one. The material contributed to the overall resilience of the vehicle's cabin, providing another layer of protection for passengers. Today's laminated windshields follow the same basic principle discovered by Benedictus. Even though modern versions use advanced materials and manufacturing processes, the layered design remains central to their function. Two sheets of glass, bonded to a clear film that holds everything together under stress. What began as a fortunate laboratory accident has become an essential element of modern transportation safety. The invention emphasizes how small, unexpected moments in science can lead to developments that shape daily life in ways the original creator may never have imagined. Laminated windshields demonstrate the value of observation and curiosity. A simple dropped flask revealed a new way to protect people, and a curious mind took the opportunity to explore the phenomenon rather than overlook it. This turn of events helped create a safety feature that has protected countless lives over decades. It is a reminder that progress often arises from moments when chance meets careful consideration, guiding innovation toward lasting impact. Virtual reality headsets. The origins of virtual reality headsets trace back to a period long before digital screens, motion sensors, or compact processors existed. Their earliest roots appear in the mid-20th century, when inventors were experimenting with new ways to place a viewer directly inside an imagined environment. One of the most influential attempts came from cinematographer Morton Heilig, who in the late 1950s created a machine called the Sensorama. It was a large mechanical booth that combined stereoscopic images, vibrations, sound, and even subtle scents. Though it did not involve a wearable headset, its purpose was clear: to immerse the viewer completely, allowing them to feel as if they were physically present in another world. At the time, it was regarded as a novelty, yet it set the conceptual foundation for what would eventually become modern virtual reality. The shift toward a true headset arrived in 1968, when computer scientist Ivan Sutherland worked with his student Bob Spruill to build the first head-mounted display. The device was an imposing apparatus suspended from the ceiling, earning it the nickname, the Sword of Damocles. It displayed simple wireframe graphics generated by a computer, tracking the user's head movements to adjust the image in real time. Although the experience was crude by modern standards, it was groundbreaking. It demonstrated that an individual could view a digital world that responded as they moved. This was the moment when the idea of virtual reality transitioned from a speculative concept into a working prototype, even if the hardware was far from practical. In the decades that followed, various research laboratories and military programs explored the potential of immersive displays. Engineers saw opportunities in training simulations where controlled environments could help teach complex or high-risk tasks. Early headsets were still bulky and limited, but the interest in refining them persisted. These projects aimed to create digital worlds that felt more natural, placing emphasis on more accurate head tracking and wider fields of view. Slowly, the technology matured, though it remained expensive and inaccessible to the general public. Most experiments took place in specialized labs, where researchers could test new ideas without needing to reduce costs or design for mass production. The turning point for virtual reality headsets emerged in an unexpected way, driven not by major corporations but by independent experimentation. In the early 2010s, hobbyists and engineers began revisiting earlier concepts with better screens, lighter materials, and more precise sensors. This movement was encouraged by the rapid advancement of smartphones, which provided compact displays and gyroscopes that were ideal for head tracking. One developer's prototype, created using accessible components, sparked renewed excitement and ultimately led to the development of headsets aimed at consumers rather than laboratories. The revived interest marked a new stage for virtual reality, shifting it from a specialized tool to an entertainment technology with wide public appeal. As virtual reality headsets entered commercial markets, they carried forward many of the principles established by early models but with significant improvements. Developers focused on reducing motion discomfort by increasing display refresh rates and improving tracking precision. Systems that once required elaborate external hardware became more compact and efficient. The headsets began offering greater resolution, wider fields of view, and more comfortable ergonomics. These changes transformed the technology into something that could be used for extended periods, expanding its possibilities across various fields. Beyond entertainment, virtual reality headsets found unexpected applications because of their ability to create controlled, immersive environments. Educators explored them for interactive lessons, allowing students to examine distant places or complex structures. Some researchers used them to study human perception, taking advantage of the ability to adjust visual conditions in precise ways. In design fields, the headsets provided a new method of visualizing architectural plans or engineering projects, enabling users to walk through digital models before construction began. Their adaptability demonstrated how a device originally imagined as a tool for visual immersion could evolve into an instrument used across numerous disciplines. The development of virtual reality headsets continues to advance as new methods of rendering, tracking, and interaction appear. The core idea remains consistent with the early experiments: to provide an experience that surrounds the viewer completely, replacing their immediate surroundings with a constructed digital world. Improvements in processing power and display technology make these environments increasingly detailed, while engineers work toward creating lighter devices with more natural interfaces. Despite the progress, the essential appeal remains tied to the same pursuit that motivated the first inventors, to create a sense of presence in a world built by imagination. The journey of virtual reality headsets reflects a long progression of ideas gradually shaped by accidental discoveries, technological advances, and renewed interest from unexpected directions. Each stage contributed something essential, from early immersive machines to pioneering head-mounted displays and modern consumer devices. The technology that began as a visionary experiment now offers a practical tool that reaches into many aspects of contemporary life. Its evolution demonstrates how an idea can persist across generations, waiting for the right combination of materials, curiosity, and timing to fully develop. Botox. The story of Botox begins in a setting far removed from cosmetics or clinical procedures. Its origins trace back to the study of a rare form of food contamination linked to poorly preserved foods. In the late 19th century, researchers investigating this phenomenon identified a substance produced by certain bacteria that caused a distinctive pattern of muscle paralysis. This substance was extremely potent, and because of its effect on muscle activity, it became a subject of scientific interest. At the time, the work was focused purely on understanding its properties, with no expectation that it would one day be used in controlled and beneficial ways. As researchers continued to study the substance, they learned more about its mechanism. They discovered that it interacted with the communication between nerves and muscles, temporarily blocking the signals that enabled muscles to contract. This finding gradually shifted the view of the substance from something purely hazardous to something that could potentially be applied in extremely small, regulated amounts. It remained in the realm of laboratory science for many years, where investigators explored its effects with great caution. During this period, it was not seen as a potential therapy but rather as a unique biological tool that demonstrated how muscles respond when certain chemical pathways are interrupted. A breakthrough occurred when scientists began considering whether this controlled muscle relaxation could help individuals with conditions characterized by involuntary muscle activity. In the mid-20th century, experiments were conducted using highly purified, carefully measured doses. These early tests revealed promising results, showing that targeted application could reduce excessive muscle activity without affecting surrounding tissues. It marked the moment when the substance transitioned from a scientific curiosity to a candidate for therapeutic use. Researchers recognized that its precision made it suitable for addressing specific localized issues. The next stage developed when clinical trials confirmed its usefulness in reducing uncontrolled facial muscle movements. The ability to relax isolated muscles offered a new tool for specialists who were seeking more refined methods to manage such symptoms. As the data accumulated, the substance gained recognition as a controlled therapeutic agent. This marked a significant shift in its reputation. What had once been closely associated with contamination and risk was now regarded as a medical resource when handled properly. Its approval for clinical use opened the door for broader exploration, and interest in its potential applications increased. An unexpected turn occurred when specialists working with the substance noticed something unrelated to its original purpose. While treating facial muscle activity, they observed that the area around the injection site often appeared smoother and more relaxed. Lines that had formed through repeated muscle movement became noticeably less prominent. This observation sparked curiosity not only among researchers but also among individuals outside the clinical environment. The effect was consistent and repeatable, showing that the relaxation of targeted muscles influenced the appearance of the skin. This discovery was accidental, arising from treatments aimed at entirely different concerns. As interest in its appearance-related effects grew, further studies were conducted to ensure that it could be applied safely for cosmetic purposes. These studies established clear guidelines, focusing on precise dosing and specific target areas. The procedures required careful training and standardized methods to maintain reliability. Once these foundations were in place, the use of Botox expanded rapidly. It presented a new approach to managing facial lines caused by repeated muscle activity, offering results that appeared smooth and natural when performed correctly. This shift broadened its reach and made it widely known among the general public. Beyond its visible effects, researchers continued to explore additional applications in areas involving muscle activity. The same principles that made it useful for its initial therapeutic purpose now guided its use in new contexts. Specialists appreciated its ability to provide targeted, localized results without affecting other systems. Over time, this versatility solidified its place not only in cosmetic procedures but also in various clinical fields where precise muscle relaxation could be beneficial. Each new study contributed to a deeper understanding of how the substance could be applied in controlled ways. Today, Botox stands as a notable example of how a scientific investigation into a harmful substance can lead to unexpected positive applications. Its evolution, from the study of a rare foodborne issue to one of the most recognizable treatments in modern practice, reflects a long process shaped by observation, experimentation, and careful refinement. The accidental discovery of its cosmetic effects added a new dimension to its use, expanding its presence far beyond its original purpose. The story demonstrates how a single scientific insight can branch into multiple paths, influencing both medical practice and everyday life in ways that early researchers could not have predicted. WD-40. The story of WD-40 begins in the early 1950s, during a period when engineers and researchers were working intensively on protecting metal surfaces from corrosion. Aerospace technology was advancing rapidly, and machines required coatings that could withstand demanding environments. Rust and moisture posed persistent challenges, creating the need for a substance that could shield delicate components while remaining simple enough to apply in a variety of settings. This need prompted a small research team in California to begin testing different chemical formulations. Their goal was clear: to create a compound capable of displacing water while leaving behind a protective layer that adhered firmly to metal. The team focused on developing a spray that would eliminate moisture at the molecular level, forming a barrier that resisted corrosion. The early experiments did not yield immediate success. Dozens of mixtures were tested, each adjusting the balance of solvents and oils. Some combinations evaporated too quickly, while others left a residue that failed to protect the surface. Yet the group remained persistent, refining small details and documenting each step. The breakthrough finally came when they created a formula that effectively displaced water while leaving behind a thin, consistent protective coating. It was their 40th attempt, and it achieved the specific effect they were aiming for. This successful formulation was initially intended for use in aerospace applications. Engineers working on specialized aircraft components required a material that could protect surfaces from condensation and environmental exposure. The new spray proved valuable for maintaining parts that were otherwise prone to rusting. Although it was developed for a narrow purpose, the team recognized the potential for broader utility. The spray's ability to seep into tight spaces, dissolve light grime, and create a lasting protective film made it suitable for various mechanical tasks. Still, its primary role remained focused on industrial environments, far from everyday household use. The shift began when workers who handled the product realized its usefulness extended beyond their professional tasks. They began taking small amounts home, applying it to squeaky hinges, stuck mechanisms, and tools showing early signs of rust. The substance worked reliably across all these situations, demonstrating a versatility that had not been part of its original design. Word spread informally, and soon the product was being requested by people outside the aerospace field. The researchers observed this unexpected interest and started considering how a material created for advanced engineering might also serve general mechanical maintenance. Once the decision was made to introduce the spray to a wider audience, its development gained new direction. The formulation remained unchanged, but the packaging shifted toward a design intended for easy household use. The spray could reach narrow joints and moving parts, allowing it to remove moisture, reduce friction, and restore mobility. These qualities made it appealing not only to technicians but also to individuals maintaining bicycles, garden tools, and everyday mechanical items. The spray found a role in situations where complex lubricants or cleaning agents were unnecessary. It became a tool for simple, practical solutions that required minimal preparation. Over time, WD-40 became associated with a surprising range of uses. Its ability to loosen stuck mechanisms made it helpful in tasks that required gentle restoration rather than force. The spray dissolved residues that accumulated on surfaces exposed to weather, while its protective layer reduced future corrosion. The consistency of its performance encouraged people to apply it to tasks they had not initially considered, from maintaining musical instruments to preventing minor rust on frequently handled metal objects. This expanding list of applications grew organically, driven by experimentation rather than by planned marketing. The product's reputation continued to grow as more individuals encountered its effects in informal, practical situations. Its utility in preventing moisture buildup made it helpful in environments exposed to damp air, while its ability to penetrate small mechanical gaps allowed it to reach areas inaccessible by thicker lubricants. Because the spray was easy to apply and required minimal cleanup, it became a go-to option for solving mechanical issues efficiently. This convenience played a large role in its adoption across households, workshops, and garages. As the decades passed, WD-40 remained remarkably consistent in composition. The original formula demonstrated reliable behavior, and because the product fulfilled its intended purpose so effectively, it did not require major modification. This stability contributed to its enduring presence, with many users treating it as a universal tool for minor mechanical challenges. Its role expanded beyond maintenance, showing up in creative problem-solving scenarios, where people used it to achieve unexpected results. These examples reflected the same principle that had led workers to take the spray home in the first place. Practical experimentation revealing new possibilities. Today, WD-40 is widely recognized as a multipurpose tool derived from a single engineering objective. Its accidental transition from an aerospace solution to a household staple illustrates how innovation can evolve through observation rather than intention. A formulation developed to protect advanced machinery eventually became a common object found in drawers, toolboxes, and workshops across the world. Its journey shows how a well-designed material can exceed its original purpose, gaining new significance through everyday use. The transformation of WD-40 from a specialized protective spray into a widely applied maintenance aid highlights the unpredictable nature of invention, where a single idea can take on a life far beyond what its creators envisioned. The iron lung, negative pressure ventilator. The development of the iron lung began during a period when medical science was searching for ways to assist individuals whose breathing muscles had become severely weakened. In the early 20th century, outbreaks of respiratory paralysis created urgent challenges for hospitals. Traditional methods of assisting breathing were limited, and the need for a mechanical device that could support the body's natural respiratory movements became increasingly clear. Researchers studying the physiology of breathing understood that the process relied not only on the lungs themselves but also on the motion of the chest and diaphragm. This understanding formed the basis for a new kind of machine, one that would work from the outside, rather than pushing air directly into the body. The first attempts at creating such a device were experimental and often cumbersome. Inventors explored the concept of using negative pressure to simulate the natural expansion of the chest. The idea was simple in principle. If the pressure around the torso were reduced, the chest cavity would expand, drawing air into the lungs. However, turning this principle into a practical machine was challenging. Early prototypes were large, rigid structures, and their mechanisms lacked the precision and control necessary for safe operation. Yet these early trials demonstrated that the approach had potential. Even basic models could generate enough movement to support breathing, showing that negative pressure ventilation was viable. The turning point came in the late 1920s, when engineers and medical researchers collaborated to refine the concept. They designed a cylindrical chamber large enough to hold the patient's body while leaving the head exposed. A motor-driven bellows system adjusted the air pressure inside the chamber in a rhythmic pattern, mimicking the natural breathing cycle. When the pressure dropped, the chest expanded. When it returned to normal, the chest relaxed. This controlled alternation allowed the machine to provide continuous respiratory support. For patients whose breathing muscles were no longer functioning, the device acted as a mechanical stand-in, offering a steady and reliable rhythm. The iron lung became widely recognized during outbreaks of respiratory paralysis that affected large numbers of children and adults. Hospitals began acquiring these machines to manage severe cases, and entire wards were dedicated to their operation. Despite their size and intimidating appearance, the devices provided a remarkable degree of stability. They could maintain a safe breathing rhythm for extended periods, allowing patients to rest and recover from the acute phase of their illness. Many individuals who otherwise lacked the muscular strength to breathe independently were kept alive by the machine's steady mechanical cycle. Its impact on patient survival was significant, marking a major advancement in supportive medical care. Although the iron lung was created to address a specific medical crisis, its development led to broader insights into respiratory mechanics. The device demonstrated the effectiveness of external ventilation as an alternative to methods that forced air directly into the lungs. Researchers studying its operation gained a deeper understanding of how pressure changes affect breathing, knowledge that later contributed to more compact and versatile ventilation technologies. While negative pressure ventilators eventually gave way to more modern systems, the principles established by the iron lung continued to influence medical engineering for decades. Its physical design also shaped the experience of those who used it. The machine fully enclosed the body from the neck down, leaving only the head outside the chamber. This arrangement required careful attention to patient comfort and maintenance. Nurses and operators developed specialized methods for daily care, working around the machine's structure. Although the environment was restrictive, many patients adapted to the routine and found ways to communicate, read, or listen to music through long periods of use. For some, the machine became a long-term companion, providing the support their bodies could not. As respiratory technology advanced, more compact devices eventually replaced the iron lung in most clinical settings. Yet its legacy remains important. It was one of the first machines capable of sustaining life by replicating essential biological functions with mechanical precision. Its design demonstrated that thoughtful engineering could compensate for weakened physiology, opening the door to innovations in critical care. The iron lung stands as a reminder of how necessity drives invention, and how even large, unwieldy machines can transform medical practice when built with a clear understanding of the body's natural processes. Today, the iron lung is remembered not only as a technological achievement but also as a symbol of resilience. It represents a period when medical science confronted new challenges and created tools that allowed thousands of individuals to survive conditions that would otherwise have been fatal. Its development, shaped by experimentation and urgent need, remains a key chapter in the story of mechanical ventilation. The machine illustrates how innovation can emerge from difficult circumstances, offering support and stability during times of uncertainty. Bubble wrap. The story of bubble wrap begins in the late 1950s, when two engineers were exploring an idea completely unrelated to packaging or shipping. Their goal was to create a new type of textured wallpaper. They wanted a material that offered a modern, futuristic look, something that would appeal to the growing interest in unconventional interior design. To achieve this, they experimented with sealing 2 layers of plastic together while trapping small pockets of air between them. The result was a flexible sheet covered in evenly spaced bubbles. Although the texture was striking, the wallpaper concept did not gain interest. People appreciated innovative design, but few wanted plastic walls dotted with raised air-filled pockets. Yet, the creation itself was unusual enough to spark curiosity. After the wallpaper idea failed, the engineers reconsidered their invention. They saw potential in the material's insulating qualities and believed it might work as a greenhouse covering. Its small air pockets acted as natural thermal barriers, which could help regulate temperature and protect plants from environmental fluctuations. For a time, they promoted the material to gardeners and greenhouse builders. Although it showed some promise, it lacked the durability and clarity needed for large-scale agricultural use. As a result, the greenhouse concept also faded. Despite the lack of success, the inventors were convinced that the material had untapped potential. They continued searching for an application that would match its unique structure. The breakthrough came when industries began shipping increasingly delicate electronic components. These items required stronger protection than traditional wrapping materials could provide. Manufacturers needed something light, flexible, and capable of absorbing shocks during transportation. When one of the engineers presented the bubble-filled plastic to a company working with sensitive equipment, its advantages became clear. The air pockets provided cushioning that distributed impact forces, reducing the risk of damage. The material was not heavy or bulky, and it could easily be cut or shaped to fit around different objects. What had once been an experimental wallpaper now showed promise as a protective packaging material. Once its new purpose was recognized, bubble wrap entered commercial production. Companies quickly adopted it to safeguard delicate items, especially electronic components that were vulnerable to even minor impacts. The lightweight sheets reduced shipping costs, while the cushioning effect improved reliability. Manufacturers valued the consistency of the material. The bubbles maintained their shape under pressure and provided predictable protection. Other industries soon followed, using it to wrap glassware, instruments, and countless other fragile products. The material's success grew from its practicality, offering a simple solution to a widespread problem. As its use expanded, people outside industrial settings began encountering it more often. Packages delivered to homes and offices arrived, protected by the now familiar bubble sheets. The distinctive structure caught attention immediately. Many individuals discovered that pressing the air-filled pockets produced a sharp, satisfying sensation. This inadvertent discovery gave bubble wrap an additional, entirely unexpected character. It became associated not only with protection but also with the small pleasure of popping the bubbles. The material continued evolving as manufacturers experimented with variations in bubble size, thickness, and layout. Larger bubbles provided more cushioning for heavy objects, while smaller ones offered finer protection for compact or delicate items. Some versions were designed with anti-static properties to safeguard electronics. Others incorporated new polymers to increase durability or improve environmental performance. Despite these changes, the core concept remained the same: a lightweight sheet containing uniform pockets of trapped air. The original idea proved adaptable, supporting a wide range of packaging needs across different industries. Over time, bubble wrap became deeply integrated into global shipping practices. Its consistency, reliability, and ease of use transformed it into a standard tool for protecting goods during transport. Warehouses kept large rolls on hand, ready to wrap items of any shape. Retail workers learned to handle it quickly and efficiently, while customers grew accustomed to seeing it inside the boxes they received. Packages traveled long distances, and the cushioning material played a quiet yet essential role in ensuring their safe arrival. The widespread adoption demonstrated how a simple idea could become indispensable once its true purpose emerged. Although it began as a failed interior design experiment, bubble wrap's journey reflects the unpredictable path of invention. What started as an attempt to create decorative walls evolved into a key component of modern logistics. It addressed a need that was not yet fully recognized when it was first created. The material's success came from its ability to provide protection without adding weight or complexity, offering a practical and dependable solution to a common challenge. The invention's accidental origins highlight how curiosity and persistence can lead to outcomes far beyond the initial goal. Today, bubble wrap remains a familiar and widely used material. Its role in packaging continues to be essential, especially as global shipping increases. It also retains a playful quality that people associate with the simple act of pressing its air pockets. This combination of practicality and unexpected charm has helped it maintain a unique place in everyday life. The story of bubble wrap shows how even ideas that do not succeed in their original form can find new relevance when approached from a different angle, becoming far more influential than their inventors ever imagined. Olestra fat substitute. The development of Olestra began at a time when researchers were searching for alternatives to traditional dietary fats. Food scientists wanted a substance that could provide the texture and cooking performance of regular fats without contributing the same caloric content. This ambition grew from an interest in creating products that tasted familiar while offering a different nutritional profile. Researchers at a major laboratory began experimenting with various combinations of molecules that could mimic the smoothness and mouthfeel of fat. Their work focused on blending different components to achieve a stable structure capable of handling heat and maintaining flavor. The crucial moment occurred when scientists tested a blend of sugar molecules attached to long-chain fatty acids. This structure resembled natural fat in appearance and behavior, yet its molecular size made it difficult for the body to break down. Because the digestive system could not process the compound in the same way it handled ordinary fats, the substance passed through without contributing calories. This discovery was unexpected. Researchers had been experimenting with combinations to better understand their physical properties, not to create something indigestible. When they realized what they had found, they began to explore the implications of a fat substitute that the body could not absorb. The new compound was named Olestra. With promising early results, the next step involved examining how it behaved in food preparation. Scientists tested it by frying various ingredients, heating it to cooking temperatures, and incorporating it into processed foods. It performed remarkably well. It resisted breakdown during heating, offering the crispness and texture typically associated with frying. When used in snack products, it provided a taste experience that closely matched traditional fried foods. This performance distinguished it from earlier fat substitutes, which often struggled to replicate the sensory qualities of natural oils. As interest grew, researchers conducted extensive tests to evaluate its safety and long-term effects. They focused on understanding how an indigestible fat might influence the digestive system. Studies indicated that while Olestra passed through the body unchanged, it could affect the absorption of certain nutrients. To address this, manufacturers added specific vitamins to products made with the substitute. Once these measures were established, the compound moved closer to commercial approval. The findings shaped how it would be incorporated into packaged foods, guiding guidelines for its use and labeling. When Olestra entered the consumer market, it appeared primarily in popular snack products. These items offered a familiar taste and texture but with significantly fewer calories from fat. The idea of enjoying crispy, fried snacks without the typical caloric impact attracted considerable attention. Many people were curious about a substance that could deliver the sensory experience of traditional fat while bypassing digestion. For a time, products containing Olestra became widely discussed, appearing on store shelves with distinct packaging that highlighted the novel ingredient. The real-world reception, however, proved more complex than anticipated. While the substitute provided the crispness and mouthfeel consumers expected, some individuals experienced digestive discomfort due to the compound's indigestible nature. These reactions varied, but they influenced public perception and sparked debate about the trade-off between reduced calories and possible side effects. Manufacturers adjusted labeling to ensure consumers were aware of the compound's unique characteristics. Despite these efforts, the attention surrounding its digestive effects overshadowed some of the scientific achievements behind its creation. As time passed, interest in Olestra gradually declined in mainstream markets. The food industry shifted toward other approaches to reducing caloric content, including different oil blends and portion-controlled products. At the same time, consumer preferences moved toward minimally processed foods, leaving less space for highly engineered substitutes. Still, Olestra did not disappear entirely. It continued to appear in niche applications and remained an example of how chemistry could influence food design. Its development contributed to a broader understanding of fat substitutes and informed future research in food science. The story of Olestra illustrates how an accidental discovery can set off an unexpected chain of events. What began as an effort to study unusual fat structures led to a compound with unique properties, capable of delivering the sensory qualities of traditional fat without being absorbed by the body. Its introduction into the marketplace demonstrated both the possibilities and challenges of reimagining familiar foods with new scientific methods. Although its widespread use was short-lived, its creation left a clear mark on the history of food innovation. Olestra remains a notable case in the evolution of processed foods. It represents the intersection of chemistry, nutrition, and public perception, showing how a single discovery can reshape ideas about what food can be. Its journey, from a laboratory experiment to a widely discussed ingredient, highlights the unpredictable nature of scientific progress. Even when outcomes differ from expectations, the knowledge gained continues to influence future developments. The invention stands as an example of how attempts to solve one problem can lead to discoveries that open entirely new paths. Tang Powdered Drink Mix. Tang began as a practical laboratory experiment rather than the iconic powdered drink later associated with space travel. In the late 1950s, food chemist William A. Mitchell, working at General Foods, focused on creating convenient, shelf-stable products that could fit the fast-paced lifestyle emerging in America. His goal was to design a fruit-flavored powdered beverage that would dissolve quickly in water and maintain its taste over long periods of storage. There was nothing grand or visionary about the project, simply the pursuit of an efficient drink mix for everyday use. Yet the final result unexpectedly captured global attention and became part of a cultural moment far beyond the supermarket shelf. Mitchell developed Tang by experimenting with dehydrated flavor compounds, citric acid, and carefully balanced sweeteners. The challenge was achieving a strong, pleasant orange taste without using fresh fruit juice, which spoiled quickly. Through repeated trials, he produced a formula that delivered a vibrant citrus flavor, mixed easily in water, and stayed stable for months. Initially, Tang did not generate substantial interest from consumers. It was placed in stores alongside other powdered drinks, but sales were modest and its launch passed quietly. No one imagined that a routine development in a food lab would soon be propelled into the spotlight by one of the largest scientific endeavors of the century. Everything changed when NASA began searching for beverages that could be safely used during crewed space missions. Astronauts needed drinks that resisted spoilage, weighed very little, and maintained taste in the controlled environment of a spacecraft. Water on early missions often had a metallic aftertaste due to the onboard systems used to purify it, making it difficult for astronauts to consume enough fluids. Tang's powdered formula offered a simple solution. It masked unpleasant tastes, required no refrigeration, and was extremely lightweight. NASA selected Tang for its Gemini missions, and although the drink was not initially designed for astronauts, its practicality made it a natural fit. Tang's presence in space quickly transformed its reputation back on Earth. News stories, promotional materials, and public fascination with space exploration all contributed to making Tang appear adventurous and futuristic. Children associated it with the bravery and innovation of the astronauts they saw on television, and adults were drawn to the sense of modern convenience it represented. What had been a slow-selling product suddenly became a household staple, not because of its flavor alone, but because it became symbolic of human progress during a defining technological era. Despite the widespread belief that Tang was invented specifically for NASA, its true origin was far more ordinary. It was a simple solution to a simple commercial challenge: how to create a durable, appealing drink mix. But the unexpected intersection of market experimentation and space exploration gave it a new identity. Tang became a cultural icon, linking everyday life to the excitement of scientific advancement. Its journey from an overlooked supermarket product to a beverage associated with space missions demonstrates how chance circumstances can elevate even the most ordinary invention into something memorable. Tang's accidental legacy remains a reminder of how innovation often emerges at the intersection of practicality and serendipity. It began as a straightforward laboratory creation, became a useful tool for astronauts, and ultimately entered popular culture through a combination of timing, technology, and public imagination. Through this unlikely path, Tang secured its place in history, not because it was designed to change the world, but because circumstances lifted it into a role far beyond its original purpose. The artificial kidney dialysis machine. The development of the artificial kidney, now known as the dialysis machine, began as a series of urgent attempts to solve a life-threatening medical problem rather than a planned breakthrough. In the early 20th century, kidney failure was considered untreatable, and physicians could offer little more than supportive care. The idea of artificially filtering the blood had been discussed in theory, but the technology needed to make it possible did not exist. It would take a combination of improvisation, wartime shortages, and unconventional experimentation to push the first working device into existence. And although it later became a cornerstone of modern medicine, its invention emerged from a far more improvised and accidental path. The key figure behind this development was a Dutch physician, Willem Kolff, who began exploring methods of blood purification during the 1940s. Working in a small hospital during World War II, Kolff faced limited access to advanced materials and scientific equipment. Supplies were restricted, and even basic tools were difficult to obtain. Yet he remained determined to construct a device capable of removing toxins from the blood. His early efforts relied on objects found in everyday life: sausage casings, wooden barrels, washing machine components, and aquarium parts. These improvised materials formed the basis of his first rotating drum dialyzer, an experimental apparatus that looked more like a homemade machine than a medical instrument. Kolff's device operated on a simple but powerful principle: diffusion. He filled long tubes made from cellophane, the same material used in food packaging, and circulated a patient's blood through them while the tubes were submerged in a cleansing solution. Toxins passed through the membrane into the surrounding fluid, while blood cells and essential proteins remained inside the tubing. It was a fragile system, prone to failure, but it represented the first workable attempt at artificial blood filtration. Kolff continued to refine the machine through trial, error, and persistence, despite the fact that early tests were neither predictable nor consistently successful. The accidental element in this invention was not a single surprising moment, but rather the unusual combination of constraints and resources that shaped its creation. Because Kolff lacked access to specialized materials, he relied on whatever he could find. Sausage casings became the semi-permeable membrane. An old automobile water pump provided circulation. Stripped-down machine parts served as the rotating frame. None of these components had been designed for medical purposes, yet together they formed a device capable of sustaining life. The machine emerged from necessity and invention under pressure, rather than from a conventional path of engineering research. In 1945, one of the first patients survived an episode of acute kidney failure using Kolff's device. It was a turning point demonstrating that artificial blood purification was possible. Over the next decade, other researchers built upon his work, refining the membranes, improving flow control, and creating safer ways to access the bloodstream. The accidental beginnings, those improvised materials and wartime limitations, gradually evolved into a standardized medical treatment. By the 1960s, dialysis had transformed from an experimental rescue technique into a routine therapy capable of sustaining people for years. As the machine improved, its impact expanded far beyond what the earliest inventors imagined. Dialysis became essential not only for emergency cases but also for chronic kidney conditions, giving patients a chance to live long, stable lives despite organ failure. Entire clinical centers were built around this technology, and a global medical system formed to support it. Yet its origins remained rooted in that first improvised device assembled from household materials. The artificial kidney was not born from perfect conditions, but from persistence guided through limitation. Today, modern dialysis machines are highly engineered systems capable of regulating blood flow, monitoring electrolytes, and maintaining fluid balance with remarkable precision. They bear little resemblance to Kolff's rotating drum, yet their purpose remains the same: to provide an artificial means of filtering the blood when the natural organs can no longer do so. The invention's accidental nature helped shape a device that eventually saved millions of lives. The artificial kidney stands as an example of how unexpected circumstances can push scientific progress forward. It began as a makeshift solution built from unconventional parts, tested under challenging conditions, and refined through necessity rather than design. What started as an improvised experiment grew into one of the most important medical technologies of the modern age, demonstrating how innovation often arises from determination meeting chance. Safety coffins. The story of safety coffins began in a time when medical knowledge was still developing, and the line between life and death could be dangerously unclear. In the 18th and 19th centuries, accidental premature burials were not myth but real possibilities. Illnesses that caused deep comas, slow heartbeats, or shallow breathing often confused physicians. Without the tools to measure vital signs accurately, some people were mistakenly declared dead. As unsettling accounts of exhumations and near misses circulated, the public grew increasingly anxious. Out of this fear, inventors began searching for a way to protect individuals from the rare but terrifying possibility of being buried alive. Safety coffins emerged not as a planned revolution in burial practices but as a response to growing social pressure and a deeply human fear of misdiagnosis. Early versions of safety coffins were simple in concept. Inventors designed mechanisms that allowed anyone who revived underground to signal for help. These included strings attached to bells on the surface, tubes for breathing, shafts that allowed air to enter the coffin, and even flags that would pop up if the occupant moved. The bells became the most iconic feature, not because they frequently saved lives, but because they symbolized reassurance. Relatives could keep watch during the first days after burial, listening for any sound. Although many of these devices were never used in real emergencies, their presence reflected the anxieties of the era and the desire to ease those fears through technology. The accidental nature of their invention lay in the fact that safety coffins were developed not through direct medical insight but through a mixture of superstition, imperfect science, and inventive improvisation. Inventors were responding to incomplete medical understanding rather than solving a clearly defined problem. Many designs were influenced more by imagination than by practical testing. Some creators proposed systems with small ladders built inside the coffin, though the confinement made such ideas impractical. Others imagined complex ventilation systems, unaware of how little oxygen would remain once the coffin was sealed underground. Yet even these unrealistic concepts played a role in advancing discussions about medical diagnosis and the need for more reliable indicators of death. One of the most notable contributors to the development of safety coffins was German inventor Johann Taberger, who created a device in the early 19th century that linked the corpse's hands to a set of mechanical levers above ground. If the person moved, the bell would ring and alert a watchman. His design appeared during a period when reports of accidental burials were widely circulated in newspapers, intensifying public concern. The device gained attention not because it was frequently used, but because it represented the first organized attempt to formalize a system of rescue for the prematurely buried. It showed how fear and uncertainty could drive inventive solutions, even when the underlying problem was rare. As the decades progressed, safety coffins became increasingly elaborate. Some included speaking tubes to allow communication with the surface. Others offered food compartments, lighting, or signals connected to small hatches that could be opened from inside. Patents from the late 19th century show designs that resembled miniature escape chambers, focusing more on mechanical ingenuity than practical likelihood. The Victorian era, with its fascination for death rituals and its fear of medical errors, became the peak period for these inventions. Even though documented cases of successful rescues were extremely limited, families purchased these devices for peace of mind. The purchase itself was a form of insurance against a deeply emotional fear. The accidental impact of safety coffins extended beyond their immediate use. They encouraged physicians to push for better diagnostic methods and more reliable definitions of death. This contributed, indirectly, to the development of clinical standards such as checking reflexes, observing extended periods of cardiac inactivity, and using stethoscopes to verify vital signs. The spread of safety coffin designs also highlighted the limitations of medical practice at the time, pushing society to question how death was determined and how it could be more accurately confirmed. By the early 20th century, advancements in medical science reduced the need for safety coffins. As diagnostic technology improved, public fear of premature burial gradually declined. The devices became curiosities, symbols of an era defined by uncertainty and imagination. Yet their history remains a compelling example of how human anxiety can drive technological development, even when the threat being addressed is largely theoretical. They stand as artifacts of a time when people sought security through invention, and when creative responses emerged from circumstances shaped more by cultural fears than by scientific fact. Safety coffins remind us that the path of innovation is not always straightforward. They evolved at the intersection of fear, misunderstanding, and the desire for comfort. While they never became essential medical tools, they played an accidental role in advancing the accuracy of medical diagnostics and easing societal concerns during a period of scientific transition. Their story illustrates how inventions can arise from the emotional needs of a population as much as from technological ambition, and how even unlikely devices can leave a subtle imprint on the progress of science. Ending. As we reach the end of our journey through inventions that changed the world by accident, it becomes clear that innovation often emerges from unexpected moments, surprising challenges, and simple curiosity. If you enjoyed this exploration, feel free to support the channel. Leave a like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. And if you know someone who might appreciate these stories, you're welcome to share this video with them. Thank you for watching, and until next time.